So you want to set up a server to play ARK with you and your friends, right?
Wrong!
Well, yes, because if you are on console, we believe you won't be able to host dedicated servers as you can't for Genesis Part 1, at least for Xbox One, PS4 and PS5. So you're left with the options of joining an official server, joining an unofficial server, or hosting your own server. And of course, if you want to play at your own pace, without the worry of other players, hosting your server will be your only choice. And I've got the full guide here on how to set up your own server. You're right kids, it's Ras Clark, and before we begin, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, share around, and let's get into it. So first thing to note, if you're going to host your own server, you need to do it sooner rather than later. From experience, I've hosted servers on the day of map release and found there were no servers available within my region on map launch day. So you want to make sure you do this at least a few days early, at least if you want to host with the lowest latency possible. And for console, you're split between two server providers, Gportal or Nitrado. And you're going to want to choose Nitrado, and I'll show you why. If you're on PC, of course, you've got a lot of options available to you. But if choosing to use Nitrado, follow these steps. Go to the Nitrado website, I'll leave a link in the description. And from there, simply choose Products and Game Server. Choose of course your platform of choice, whether it's PC or PS4. If you're on Xbox, you'll see a link directing you to the Microsoft Store version, which you'll have to use for Xbox, but they both operate the same, nothing to panic about, and I'll show you the difference. So PC and PS4, you get the opportunity to choose a specific slot server, but for now we're just going to go to custom so we can choose our region. And then of course you're displayed with your choices of region. Of course you want to pick one that's close to you, and you can run a latency measurement to make sure it's the best one possible. Xbox works the same, however it's just not through a map that you can see. And then simply pick your slots and how long you want it to run for. You can choose a range of slots and runtime, but of course the more slots, the longer the runtime, the more it's going to cost. But a good example for a 10 slot server for 30 days will cost you $12.99. Then simply rent your server, at which point it will install. Following that, you'll be presented with your game server interface, where of course you should be able to see your server. And whilst there are many options within this menu, all you need to do is click on Web Interface. Upon doing so, you'll be graced with the CPU usage, memory usage and player count, with a range of options available to you, but for now simply click on General. At this point, all you need to do is select your map. Now of course, if you're doing this before Genesis Part 2, you're not going to have that map available to you. So simply select any map, maybe leave it on Ireland for now, which you can of course change on the day when the map drops. Make sure to save changes and of course restart the server. Following that, you want to download a program called Beacon. I promise you this is going to make your life so much easier when coding anything into the game that you want. It's a very user-friendly tool. And of course there's a free version giving you access to everything you're going to need if you simply want to play Genesis as is. But there's a paid version giving you even more options to change and set up your server to your taste. And I'll leave a link in the description. Of course, select your platform of choice to download on, and once installed, simply click on File, New Project. At this point, click on Import Config Files. Select of course your server hosting company, which is Nitrado, and you may need to authorize this by simply clicking on Continue and then re-entering your account details. Obviously grant access, at which point you can close this window and go back to Beacon. Beacon will then pull up a list of all the servers you own and simply select the one you want to use. Once done, click Next. Now you'll have a range of things to import. Tick all of them off apart from Server Link and click OK. So the next thing you want to do is go to the Servers tab, click on your server, at which point you'll be given the options to change the server name, so you can of course change it to whatever you want, so you can find this quite easy in game. And then if you want a message when the game starts up and how long you want that message to run for. You can of course add a password and an admin password if you want this locked to you and your mates. From here, there's a range of options you can pick from, and it may look a bit different to you whether you've got the free version or the paid version. For now, I'll just go through the free version options. You've got the breeding multipliers, where you can of course change the mature speed, the egg speed, imprints, and it will tell you exactly how it affects each creature within the bottom menu. Day and night cycle, it says it on the tin, however long you want your days and nights to run for. Decay and spore timer, so if you want your structures to not decay after a certain time. You can of course extend this timer, as well as crop speeds and spawn timers for any perishable items in the game. Difficulty, of course, this is a big one for you. If you want your creatures to be a higher level than they are unofficial, you can simply change this in the top menu, and Beacon will adjust all of the in-game values to make sure the creatures spawn at this level. It will even tell you what your tech creatures and wyverns will spawn at. Loot drop changes are available to you here, so if you want to code particular items into particular drops, you can do it right here. So for example, I've programmed now every white drop will have a shotgun in it. I can test this with the simulator down there, and I'll go more in depth on this in another video. Loot quality scaling, of course, the higher the percentage, the better the items that are going to drop. And then of course stat multipliers. If you want your characters to gain more stats per level or creatures, you can simply define the values here, and it's pretty straightforward. It tells you how much it's going to go up by each level. Big one, of course, make sure to select maps and make sure you've got your map selected, especially when it comes to changing loot drops. Once all that is done, of course save changes, then hit deploy. Make sure you've got your server ticked on, and then begin the process. It will at this point prompt you to turn on expert mode. Go ahead and do this, as it will make your life so much easier, I promise. And then once done and finished, you don't need to touch Beacon anymore, unless of course you want to change any more values. Refresh your Nitrado page, at which point now it will be a lot simpler to read and go through the options that you want to change. And there is a variety of values that you can change to your taste. Big ones of course are the restart cooldown, whether you want the server to cool down before it restarts. If you want to make sure it's running the current active event that of course Wildcard run on their official servers. Don't worry too much about the New Year event. Of course Cryopod debuff duration, the lower that is, the lower your cryo sickness timer. And a big one of course, and why it's worth hosting your own server, the opportunity to back up and roll the server back whenever you need to. All your saves will appear here. And there's a bunch of different options here that you can change if you need to, but at this point, if it's for you and your mates, you don't need to worry about any of these options. 2 more things left to do before you're set and ready. Go on the cross ARK option and make sure to select cross ARK and generate a cluster ID. This will mean your server is locked to its own cluster, meaning nobody can download anything onto this server or take stuff off it. If you want to download stuff from your single player game, you can of course do this by not having that option available, but just make sure you have a password on this, or else somebody may overrun your server. And certainly make sure to have a daily restart by clicking the automated tasks option. 1 restart a day will keep your server in check and just make sure it doesn't get overloaded and the performance starts getting worse. And that's it. From there, you're on your own. Simply make sure the server's running, and then you can find your server by clicking unofficial servers, and then of course putting in the server name that you gave it. I hope this helps some of you out there. Please, if you do want to play with your friends on console, this is the only way, I'm afraid. So make sure to do this, and do this sooner than later, so you're not stuck with no servers within your region. Comment below how you found this. I really want to know if you enjoyed this, if you learned something. As somebody who's ran servers for years now, I just want to impart my wisdom and make sure you're as set up and ready to play Genesis Part 2 the way you want to play it. My name's Ross Clark. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and as always, peace out.